One of the main programs within the Youth Committee portfolio is RYE, RYE. Can you put up your hand if you know what that is? Right. Well, listen up, people. You're all going to learn something really good. RYE is Rotary Youth Exchange, sometimes Rotary International Youth Exchange, but usually just Rotary Youth Exchange. The first documented exchanges go back to 1929, when the Rotary Club of Copenhagen commenced exchanges. Then there were exchanges between clubs in California and some of the Latin American countries. That started about 1939, was suspended during the war, and started again about 1946. The reciprocal 12-month program, as we know it now, started to become very popular in the 1950s, and that's now the primary type of Rotary Youth Exchange. But there are others, and I'll touch on those at the end. In 1972, Rotary International agreed to recommend to all clubs worldwide that they engage in this international activity. So today, more than 8,000 youth exchange students travel abroad every year to live and study in about 80 countries. One of those countries is New Zealand, so we send students internationally and we host students internationally. So they're known as outbound and inbound students, if you heard those words and were wondering what they were. The most powerful reason for the promotion of international is the promotion of international understanding and peace, particularly through the exposure to different cultures. As the world becomes a smaller, friendlier place, and we learn more about people all around the world, regardless of their nationality, we learn that there are some very basic similarities worldwide. Things like the desire for a safe, comfortable environment that allows for a rich and satisfying life for our children and for ourselves. The Youth Exchange provides thousands of young people with the opportunity to meet people from other lands and to experience their cultures. This plants within them the seeds for a lifetime of international understanding. The exchange also offers a very unique experience whereby a student is immersed in another culture for 12 months in a way that's just not possible if you're a tourist. A student will experience the daily challenges and rewards as they make new friends and get to know their new culture. An exchange brings significant personal growth and development from which the student builds their self-confidence, their independence, general communication skills and social skills. In 12 months, and the exchange experience helps them develop skills and abilities that will stay with them for the rest of their lives. So there are four main stated objectives for the program. To enable students to advance their education, and it is a requirement that students, whether here in New Zealand or overseas, attend secondary school. To give students opportunities to broaden their outlook, to have students act as ambassadors, and to provide sufficient time to study and observe another country's culture. So, what has all of this to do with us, you might ask? Can you put up your hand if you remember Manuel Godin? Yes. So the really sad thing is that we haven't had another Manuel since she left us in June of 2011, despite the fact that this club has made a commitment to host one Rotary Youth Exchange student every 2 years. Now there are other smaller clubs in New Zealand who have made a commitment to host one student every year, but we, taking into account the particulars of this club, we have set our objective at one every 2 years, and now we're in deficit. But we're coming up to the time where we need to make a commitment starting in July of next year. So one of my questions to you is, do we just make a commitment for one, or are we going to play catch up and make a commitment for two? So here's some questions for you. This is on the Rotary International page, frequently asked questions. I've highlighted a couple that I thought you might have. Do I have to have had previous hosting experience? No. Anybody can host. Rotary has a very organised network of support, and there is briefing for families who decide to put up their hand to host. You get a written handbook, so in case you go to the briefing meetings and then forget everything you're told, you can take the book away and read it later on. And there is a counsellor appointed that is available to you to discuss any issues or problems that might arise. What if I don't have children at home? Is there anybody here who doesn't have children at home? Yeah, this is the question for you. The answer is, it's not a problem. In fact, some exchange students do really well when they're not competing with other children at home, particularly when they are the exact same age. And very often older parents have the time and the capacity to act almost as older aunts and uncles, or dare I say it, grandparents, and provide an opportunity to insights about the culture in the country in a way that a family that's really, really busy with a number of teenagers would not be able to do. So, my family has hosted 5 times, 4 times with another organisation and once with Rotary. We were the last family who had Manuel before she went home. It's a great thing to do. We've never once hosted an international student where I had children of the same age. In fact, the first time I hosted, my son was just 10 months old. And I thought that would be a dreadful experience, but that boy who was from Guatemala came back to stay with us in December of last year and still says it was the best year of his life. I would really like you all to think seriously about whether you could open your hearts and your homes to a student next year. The typical setup is for 4 families of 3 months each, but these days Rotary International is nothing if not flexible, and so there can be variations on that arrangement. In fact, when Manuel was here, my daughter got married, and so there was a little bit of toing and froing between the host families so that Manuel could have a good experience, but we could all, the host families could all meet our other family obligations as well. So I'm not going to ask you to identify yourselves today, but I will be back to ask for your commitment to hosting a student or 2 next year.